What is up, Raveraide fam? Welcome to another episode of the Raveraide podcast with your host, Tyler Hardy. And as always, I just want to take a moment to express my overwhelming love and gratitude for each and every one of you guys who tune in on a daily and weekly basis to talk all things Raveraide, self improvement, biohacking, psychedelics, everything that we talk about on this podcast, all with the intention to help you become the most self actualized and self loved version of yourself that you can possibly be. So that way you can share your gift with the world because we need it now more than ever. And I know that you have an amazing gift that needs to be shared in your lifetime. And we're going to help you uncover what that is and become that version of yourself that you've always wanted to become. So in today's episode, I want to talk about psychedelics, and I want to talk about the importance of what psychedelics have done for me in my life and how they've changed the scope in which I view the world through, and how amazing they really have been for my mental health, my self improvement, my spirituality, and everything. Just because they really have changed so much in my life in a few short years. And I'll explain kind of like how I used them before and now how I use them, and what they do for me, and really the importance of how to get the most out of those experiences, because there is things that you can do leading up to using psychedelics that'll really help you either go deeper, become more introspective, reflect more, or just gain more than what a standard use would be like. And something that I've learned in my course of using them is the importance of being intentional when you use them, and why you're using them, and what you're looking to get out of them, because that's when you unlock the magic of what they can really do for you. And so I want to hop into kind of like my first experience to give you guys kind of a backstory of my first time taking any sort of psychedelic and what that was like. Is quite the experience, to say the least. So basically, the first time that I had done any sort of psychedelic, I had been to EDC the month before, so technically that. But my real first like psilocybin trip was absolutely incredible. We were up in the mountains, up in Utah, and I was with three good friends of mine, and I'd never even thought about mushrooms. I didn't really know anything about them. I didn't know what they did, what they were like. Just kind of went off of like what other people had told me, and it seemed like it was like going to be like a chill, fun experience, and it was just something that I was curious about. I was definitely like in a very like experimental, try things out, learn new things type of phase in my life. And that's what happens when you're younger, mid 20s or like early 20s. Like you just want to try different things and experiment and learn different things about yourself. And that's the whole purpose of, your early 20s, is to really gain more insight about why you are the way you are, to go back and correct the things that are fundamentally not ideal for a quality existence, and be able to actually shift that paradigm in a healthy way. And I think psychedelics really did a great job at helping me with that. And so we all ended up eating about an eighth of mushrooms, which is 3.5 grams roughly. And two of my friends, they ate less than that. They like around 2 grams. And me and my other friend, we ate our full eighth. And what ended up happening was, after a while, the two friends who took less, started to, go into their trip. And me and my other buddy were like, well, we're not feeling anything. We're bigger people. We should probably have some more. And so we ate the rest of what they had. So all in all, I ended up being around, I would say, 5 grams or so. And it was very intense. It's one of those things where we were sitting there and I was looking at the side of the mountain, and I started getting like those like audio distortions, like audible distortions, and it sounded like this like zooming sound. It was like zoom, 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 and it really like just sent me into this experience. And I had to go walk off on my own a little bit, and I was just like giggling and laughing. And you know how that is when you are taking large doses of psilocybin. You kind of get a little bit like giggly and laughy, and a little bit of just a lot of distortion visually, audibly, stuff like that. And at the time, I didn't really know what I was like, how intense it was going to get. And then there was a point in which it really started hitting. Like we started to come up, and like I remember looking at my friend, and I was like, just like his whole body was basically just red. It was like I could see all the blood flowing in, like through his skin, and all that stuff. Is pretty wild, and it definitely definitely like was scary for a second, to be quite honest. It was one of those things where like I was having like I wasn't breathing very well, and so it was very intense. It was very you know otherworldly, nothing that I had previously experienced. And it really like kind of got me going for a minute. And then I focused on my breath and brought myself back down. And that's one thing I want to make sure to emphasize, is that like your breath is the key. It's like your anchor. inside of any psychedelic experience. And I'll explain more about how I've used breath work very consciously now to even go deeper inside of my, trips and stuff like that. So I was able to kind of breathe and get myself back to planet Earth a little bit. And so we ended up walking down this path, and I remember like looking up over my head. We looked at this tree. It's kind of like a skinny spruce tree. They have a lot of those up in the wilderness up in Utah. And I remember like looking, and when I looked up at the tree, I was standing right underneath it. It like bent over my back, so it was like it like curved in the air and was behind me. And so like that was like the first like trippy experience, and it was just continuously getting more and more crazy at that time. But so as we're walking through there's a part where we wanted to start heading up the mountain, because like basically to like, kind of give you an idea of like what the setting's like, is we were basically heading down into like a ravine or like a bowl essentially, and there's mountains on each side, and so there's this giant valley in the middle that we were kind of walking down into. And so we got kind of towards near the bottom, and then we decided that we wanted to head up and to go to see the top of the mountain and kind of look over the city and look over the Great Salt Lake on the other side of the mountain. And so as we're heading up, there's kind of like this darker forested area where there wasn't as much sun because it was protected from the trees, and it was like much more shaded. And we're like early spring. We're probably like like end of May into June, basically heading into summertime. And so basically all the things are sprouting, and like it's really pretty. And so we're all walking, all four of us, and as we enter into this forest area, everything started illuminating like you've ever seen Avatar, the blue people. So everything started to illuminate that blue color, but it was like happening in panels. So as we would keep walking, like another 10 feet would illuminate that blue color. And we were looking around, and you could see absolutely everything. You can see all the wildlife, you could see all of the ants and stuff moving around. It's quite amazing, the things that psychedelics can show you when you use them in a healthy way. And so it was really cool to see like all the animals in their ecosystem. But the crazy part was like there was all these little bulbs that were growing out of the ground that were sprouting, just because it was like heading into summertime. And what was cool was those were basically like growing into little trees like right in front of us, and we're all like sitting there and we're like, are you guys all seeing this? And we're all like shaking our head like, yeah, we're all experiencing the same thing right now, which taps into group ecstasis and collective energy, which is another thing we'll talk about later. But we're watching all these little bulbs turn into like these little mini trees like right in front of our eyes. Like it was quite the amazing introduction to psychedelics. It's very mystical, very powerful. And we kept walking, and it just kept getting more and more beautiful in that sense. And we finally ended up getting through the forested area, which was probably, I would say, one of the coolest parts of the entire experience, if not the coolest part. Just being able to have that experience with my friends and see something so mystical, something that I had never even seen before or thought was even possible. And that's the beauty of psychedelics, is it completely changes the scope in which you view life and the magic that is actually around us at every single given moment of our day. It's just our opportunity to look in and look deeper at that magic. But basically, we get to the point where we start climbing up the mountain, and you know how it is. Like sometimes when you take a lot of psychedelics, like you get winded pretty easily, and like physical exertion can be a lot sometimes. So we ended up getting like halfway up the mountain, and the two friends went up the mountain, and another friend stayed with me, and we ended up sitting down, and we ended up turning around and looking down into the valley that we were just in. And it was pretty windy that day, actually. There's a decent amount of wind, and it was so cool because basically the silhouette of the mountains, I could see like 50 of them. Like it just kept going and going and going. As far as my eye could see, there was another one, another one. So I just could see all these backdrops of the mountains. And we ended up sitting down the side of the mountain and just staring, at the experience. And it was cool watching the wind blow through the trees, because what ended up happening was I just sat there and was zoning out and staring at what the fuck was going on in front of me. Like I had no prior conceptualization of anything like this. So it was very, very new, very like a very totalitarian experience. Like I could see and feel everything, and it was very existential for sure. And so we're looking, and all the winds blowing through the trees across the mountain range on the other side of the mountains. And eventually what ended up happening is I just was staring at the wind. It basically picked up the entire image of what I was seeing, and it started spinning all of it into like a spiral, like a fractal essentially. And I was just sitting there like in pure amazement of like what I was seeing. And it was such a beautiful thing to watch. Probably sat there for like 20, 30 minutes just staring. And it was very, very interesting. Like I remember I remember like sitting there and being like started questioning a bunch of things about my reality and like the things that I had experienced previously in my life, and was like, oh, like, why do we have money? Why do we do this? Why do we do that? So I started questioning things, and I think that was really like the beginning. And the reason I'm sharing all this is because it was like the beginning to my awakening. It was a beginning to a different level of perspective that I've been able to gain in my life since introducing them into my life just a few short years ago. And so basically, we're sitting there, and the craziest part of the entire experience happens right now. So basically, my buddy's sitting there, and he's wearing glasses, and he's kind of sitting back on his left elbow, like staring off into the mountains. And I told him, I was like, take your glasses off. And I looked at him, and he would breathe in, and he looked normal, and then he'd breathe out, and I would literally watch him turn into a 90-year-old man. So I'd watch him turn 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, get all wrinkly and old, and then he'd breathe and he'd come back to his normal age, his normal appearance. And I would just watch him over and over again, just his life cycle, his life, his aging process would happen right in front of me. And it really, in retrospect, it showed me how important the breath is. Like, breath work is such an undervalued thing, because it's one of those things. Obviously, air is always around us, but we don't realize that oxygen is actually it's a drug, and it can help us change states of consciousness in any given moment when you actually learn how to tap into it and use it properly. And so basically, we get up to the top of the mountain. After that happens, like, everything kind of like started to like peak out, and just be super clear, and how it is. And so we had some really good introspective conversations, and don't really remember a whole lot about what we talked about, but it was really an interesting experience. And I definitely changed the course of my life in a lot of ways, and I still think about that experience quite a bit, because at that time I don't think I was able to process entirely what I was seeing. And so that's one big thing I want to talk about with like conscious psychedelic use is, for a long time I would do it, and I would just be doing an experience after an experience after an experience. And it's awesome to have those experiences. They're amazing. They're, life altering. They can shift your entire paradigm. But the key is the integration part of it. The key is, actually taking what you learn in that experience and bringing it down, actually materializing it and manifesting it into new habits and actions and belief systems that you actually carry out in your life. So then that way, that experience didn't go to waste. That experience, you're able to get the most out of that experience, because it's more about the quality of the experiences rather than the quantity. And that's why, from then on there, I'd done it quite a bit. I've definitely had my fair share of psychedelic experiences, to say the least. And there was a point where I was doing it so frequently that it was starting to kind of lose its magic. It was starting to become, very, average at best. And the reason for that, I believe, is because I was doing it so frequently back to back that I wasn't really able to integrate, like I mentioned before. If you don't give yourself the opportunity to integrate what you learn, then you're going to keep learning the same experiences over and over again. And that goes, without saying just psychedelics. That's just general life rules, right? That's how life works, is that if we don't learn from what it is that we're supposed to learn from, we'll keep repeating that same mistake and having that same experience over and over and over again until we, get the general theme and learn the lesson and alchemize that into a gift. And so, for quite a while, up until yesterday, I hadn't touched any sort of psychedelic in over a year. One, because I think I needed a break from it. I really wanted to focus on actually getting things done and integrating into my day-to-day life and things that I do now. And I didn't want any distractions of any sort. But also, it was just one of those things, like I mentioned, is it kind of loses its magic, because it's about the quality of the experiences, not the quantity. And so it was really important to know that that break was really important. So don't feel like you have to keep doing it and keep going back into that experience if you don't need to. If you need to take time to integrate, take time to, give yourself the opportunity to absorb what it is that you learned and experienced, you're gonna see so much more self-improvement and gain from that, rather than just going back in and back in and back in. And I think I see that happen to a lot of people, as they end up going into psychedelic experiences and they just do it too frequently. It's one of those things where, you need to be the judge and feel into like what's appropriate for you and how frequently you should be doing it. But I think it really is dependent on your ability to integrate, really, because if you can integrate quickly and you can get out of your own way and see the truth for what it is and actually take those experiences and immediately apply them, then that's going to help you with being able to have more of those experiences and actually get the most out of them. And so kind of fast forwarding a little bit, 3 years from that point, or 4 years essentially from that point, I rarely do them, if at all. And I do them with like a massive amount of intention. I don't take hardly anything at all, because I realize that less is more, especially when you're wanting to work on certain components, specifically like with the conscious and subconscious mind. And so one thing that I really do that's a huge benefit inside of using psychedelics or any sort of substance whatsoever, anything whatsoever, is I basically focus on the intention of why I'm doing it. So yesterday, I'm on a cleanse right now, and my body feels really good. No inflammation, super clean. My channel is clear. My gut is in really good shape right now. And I was like, you know what? Let's see what that kind of experience would be like. It's been over a year, and I really want to work on this one particular component of, an area that I think I need to improve in. And so I sat down, I wrote in my journal, and I said, okay, this is what I would like to experience. And one thing that I commonly like to do, and I learned this from my shaman, is when you have an intention for, a psychedelic experience or, anything of that nature, what I like to do is I take whatever I'm about to do and I put it in my hand, and I think of what it is that I'd like to experience, whether that would be, being able to open up my heart more, to heal, to, have fun, to experience more joy, to get to the root cause of a trauma, whatever it is that you're wanting to experience. And then I take that and I blow it into, the mushrooms or whatever I'm using. So then that way, I'm letting the universe know, I'm speaking and professing what it is that I would like to experience and what I would like to gain out of that experience. And without fail, it always delivers. The key is just making sure that you're willing to get out of your own way and not try to control the outcome of the experience. So the big thing here is making sure that, if you set that intention, being prepared to work on whatever it is that you need to work on or whatever comes up, because the universe wants to help you. It wants to help you grow and thrive because it is you. It would only want the best for itself, and you should only want the best for yourself. And a big thing that I learned in my experience yesterday was going back to my childhood and realizing a fundamental piece of my being as to why I've manifested a lot of experiences in the way that I used to, was the type of personality that I created to get attention and to get validation. And so yesterday, I could feel like a piece of my old self, kind of breaking away. And I could see how it interacted and how it played on my subconscious mind to, kind of carry like this old victim mentality of, just attention seeking, because, for a lot of people who didn't get the love and validation they needed when they were a child, they, turn to unhealthy ways of gaining that attention, because some attention is better than no attention. And so I started to see how in my early adult years, specifically around the time that I had my appendix removed and I almost died from that, I started to realize that if I kind of carried this like victim role and this like woe is me, then I would, get more attention, more sympathy, and more love from people, which is such a fatalistic, personality trait that I could see plagued early parts of my early 20s, because of the fact that I would assume like this victim role, or I would let people take advantage of me, or I would put myself into compromising situations, or have really destructive patterns, thoughts, and habits that would manifest into my life experience. And so really getting down to the root of that, it was such an interesting thing. Like I could feel myself going into the experience and connecting, to what I call source, God, whatever you believe in. And I could feel like the resistance being there. I could feel like this inner child, essentially, like this voice saying, like, oh, you don't want to do that. Like, you don't want to go there. And like, it would just make excuses. And I really consciously said, okay, no, we're going to have this experience. Like, you need this experience. This is healthy for you. And that's what true healing is coming down to, is getting down to the conscious and subconscious level and seeing that part of you that's kept you from all the experiences that you deserve and that you desire for yourself, and consciously rewriting that program and creating a new reality for you in this now moment, and recorrecting, a lot of the programming and lower vibrational habits and frequencies that we've carried as either defense mechanisms or coping mechanisms or attention seeking mechanisms from our childhood, and which is keeping us stuck in that victim consciousness. And so a big realization that I had yesterday was that the way that I view the subconscious is essentially now that the subconscious is like my child. It's the inner child, because it's a record keeper of the past, right? So one thing that's been really interesting I've noticed about the healing journey is that as you keep progressing, you basically are working backwards on your timeline. You're working from the things that have most recently happened, that tough relationship, losing that job, whatever it is that you've experienced in your life. Once you work past those things that are more close to your present moment, you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, all the way back to the point where you're a little child, and you start unveiling the core wounds that have molded your personality and way of being, and your coping mechanisms and your attachment styles and all these different things. And you start seeing what was healthy, what was unhealthy, and what got you to where you're at now. And that when you get to that point and you see the core wound, that's when we can actually make that change. That's when we can make that shift for ourselves, because you start to realize how outdated and how that isn't serving you in any way, shape, or form in your present reality. Whereas before, it may have served you. It may have gotten you that attention. It may have gotten you that love. It may have gotten you that sympathy, but it didn't come in a healthy way. It didn't come in a healthy fashion. And, it's your job to say, hey, I have a better future ahead of me, but I'm going to release this piece of myself. And then who do I get to become when I make space and get rid of the outdated belief system? And so, yesterday when I was, working through that, I was sitting there and I was just like, holy crap, like I can see on numerous occasions from, that time frame until now, how many times I've carried that energy into my relationships, how many times I've carried that into a situation, how the ego has created unnecessary drama to be able to get attention, how the ego has created different experiences that has kept me in a predictable pattern in so many ways. And now that I'm so far away from it and I disidentify to that, I can release that. And that's the beauty of the growth process. That's the beauty of healing, is you get to a point where you're able to look at yourself truthfully and honestly and say, even that thing that may have been helping you and protecting you before, you realize that it's ultimately has been a hindrance and hasn't helped you in any way, shape, or form, and has kept you in stuck patterns. And you release that with love. You release that with understanding. You release that with the knowingness that you're conscious now and that you're able to see, that there's a better potential for you if you made those changes and you willingly want to make those changes. And that's the beauty of, psychedelic experiences, is they're not the solution, but they can definitely potentiate a current state that you're in. Because I remember I used to do them and I used to carry a lot of like anxiety or worry into them. And that would cause my experiences to be a reflection of that. And now, going into it, I focus more on, the energetics of, who I'm wanting to become, and allowing myself to have those experiences and expanding myself in any way that I can that is going to ultimately, aid my highest good and aid who I am as a person and how I can help you guys. And so that was, the big breakthrough experience that I had yesterday. And it was one of those things where I was right on the edge. And that's when that's when you feel the calling to do certain things like that, is you feel like you're right on the edge of a major breakthrough, and you're right on the edge of something really big that's going to be profound and life-changing and transcendental. And you just need that little push. You need that little perspective change. You need that, change in energetic association. So then that way you can, push it over the edge and get to where you want to go. And I woke up today and I just felt really great and at peace, and like, okay, this is a major milestone. This is like a major core wound that you get to completely check off the list, and then consciously recorrect anytime that you feel a trigger or you feel the opportunity to kind of slip back into that. You're going to consciously make a different decision for yourself. And that right there is how change is made. That right there is how you're going to become the most powerful version of yourself, because it's all just a bunch of stories, right? It's all just a bunch of uncovering why you are the way that you are. And once you can see that for the truth and for what it is, that is when you become the most powerful. And I will say right now, like before I would eat or take a bunch of psychedelics, right? but the level in which you are able to go deep is completely contingent upon your willingness to look at the truth in your own life, your willingness to, thin the veil per se, and actually look at what the truth is and actually how things have been playing out, what your role and involvement was in that experience, and what you could have done differently, how you could have been better, or identifying, major, attachment style issues or defense mechanisms or trauma responses, and being able to look at them and stay looking at them. Because for a long time, I think that one big benefit that I've noticed from psychedelic use and meditation and breath work and all the things that I do now is that my willingness to look at the truth is so much greater. My focus on the truth is so much greater. And what I mean by that is you're able to sit in that moment and say, okay, I see the fault in this experience. I see why things played out the way that they did. I see my involvement. I see the other person's involvement. I see the experience and how it shaped my reality and how this core wound, changed the lens in which I viewed my entire reality through. And when you do that, that's when you can change. Those subtle shifts really make a huge difference. And for a long time, I think a lot of people struggle with, psychedelic use because, one, there's not intentionality with it, so they don't really know what they're going into the experience for. So whatever happens, happens. And when you get more intentional, it allows you to really gain and reap a lot more benefits out of it, because you know what you're looking for and you know what experience you're desiring to have, and you're able to go deeper. And as a result of going deeper, you're able to gain more intrinsic value that you're able to actually integrate into your day-to-day life. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, but also too is like the ability to look at truth, the ability to confront ego, the ability to sit in that experience that might be tough or painful or challenging, and actually see it for what it is, see it as an opportunity to heal, see it as an opportunity to grow. Because if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't be able to speak about it on this podcast. And I'm hoping that there's somebody out there that hears this and they have that huge epiphany moment in their life and they're like, holy shit, like I do something similar. I've done something similar and it shaped my reality in this way. And that perspective shift that Tyler was able to give completely changed the course of my reality. So even in our most challenging things that we experience in our life, they allow us to alchemize them into gifts, so that way we can share it with the world, that way we can share it with others and help each other heal, so then that way we can actualize what it is that we're actually meant to be here and what we can be here as a collective. And so that's been the big shift in regards to like my psychedelic experiences. It's not about the quantity in which I do it, it's about the quality in which I do it, and feeling when you're called to do it, not just because your friends are doing it and you're bored. Doing it with intentionality, doing it for a reason. And this applies to music festivals as well. Like if I do them at music festivals, this is very, very rare and far and few in between at this point, just because I like being completely clear and present and sober. But when I do them, I'm very intentional. I sit with myself. I usually go for a walk and I spend time by myself, and I, really think about, what do I want to get out of this experience? For example, do I want to be able to express myself more? Do I want to be able to heal? And as a result of that, be happier and more content with myself as an individual? Do I want to, show more love to others? Do I want to fall deeper in love with music? Do I want to, make new friends? Like you can set any intention that you want, and more often than not, you're going to have that experience if you're paying attention to the signs and the synchronicities that are happening, that are guiding you towards that desired result that you want for yourself. I think so many of us have this, desire for what we want for our life, and the path is there, but we choose not to walk the path because it, either outdated stories or belief systems that keep us stuck doing the same thing day in and day out, getting the same results day in and day out. And I am here to tell you right now that that's not how you want to spend your life, because eventually you have to answer those questions to yourself about if you did everything you possibly could to be the person that we know that you can be here at Raveraide. And so we want the best for you. We want, you to have the best experiences. And I think that, a big opportunity is for people to start consciously using psychedelics, in a way that's more constructive rather than destructive. And if you're naturally a person that has destructive tendencies, then you got to get to the root cause of that. So then that way you can actually gain the most out of these experiences and all of your experiences in life, let alone, just psychedelic experiences. It's not just about that. It's about who you become in the process of using these, consciousness altering substances. And so the main things I really want to get across are just, focus on quality, not quantity. Focus on using intention above all else. That's the biggest thing, is being intentional, using your breath as an anchor. So like I mentioned before, I use a lot of rounds of, Kundalini breath work, and really focus on my breathing, because sometimes if you feel yourself getting spacey, if you feel yourself kind of disassociating from reality a little bit, then it's important to use your breath. And that's not just in psychedelics. Again, like if I get spacey or if I get distracted, the quickest way to get back into your body is to breathe, to use your breath, to feel your body, because a lot of us check out. There's a lot of reasons to check out in this life. There's a lot of scary things in the world that are designed to make you live in lower vibrational frequency and keep you stuck there and disassociated and detached and worried and fearful and anxious ridden and all these things. And it's about using your physiology to get the most out of your body, to honor your body, to give it these experiences, because without this thing working properly, then you can't have the experiences that get you to where I know you can go. And that's why we're such a big advocate of taking good care of your health in a holistic way here at Raveraide, because the physiology is the key to your awakening. It's your key to great experiences and high quality existence. And so that's why we are so big on what we do here, because we want to give your body everything that it needs. We want to give it the supplements that it needs to feel at an optimal frequency, so that way you can get the most out of the experience. And I even drink a glass of Raveraide halfway through my experience yesterday, and it totally lifted me up, gave me more focus, and helped me stay calm and centered and present in my experience. And that's why we created the product. A lot of people use it for different reasons, but it can be a potentiator and give your body the things and the nutrients that it needs to be able to have the highest quality experience inside of any sort of psychedelic experience and or anything else. And obviously that's not medical advice, but we create the product to make your body feel good, because all psychedelics are is they're a potentiator of your current state. So if you're feeling really good and you have that experience, you're going to have an even better experience. But if you're depleted, if you're tired, if you're run down, if you're stressed, you're anxious, your CNS is shot, your adrenal glands are shot, you name it, that's going to reflect in the experience that you have. And so, the better I take care of myself, the better you take care of your body, inside and outside of music festivals, the better your life experience is going to be, the better that, your psychedelic experiences are going to be, the better that your relationships are going to be, and that's the whole purpose, is that, we created this product specifically for optimizing your health. So then that way you can get the most out of every single experience. Not just music festivals, not just working out, not just your work, but literally every single waking moment of your day, you can feel optimized. You can feel great. You can feel abundant. You can feel happy, and you can feel joyful when we give our bodies the things that it needs. That's why we don't put natural flavors in our product. That's why we don't load it with a bunch of refined sugars. That's why we don't do all the things that all these other companies do, is because we want to put your body into the best possible state. So then that way you can get the absolute most out of the experience. Then that way you are transcending and becoming what it is that I know that you can become. And through my life experience, I've basically taken all these life learning lessons and I'm compiling all of them into this podcast. So then that way you can hopefully fast track your progression and evolution as a human and get the most out of your life as soon as possible, because we're only going to be here for so long. And I want you to have the most, abundant, happy, joyful day as possible in your life experience. And the only way that's going to happen is if you do the work. And it really helps a lot if your body's in a really healthy place and you're getting all the nutrients and vitamins and minerals that your body needs on a daily basis. So I know a lot of people use the product for like a hangover cure, or they use it for day to day, but like there's another side to using this product that you can experience if you use everything with intentionality and you take good care of your body. And I want you guys to, understand and learn more about your physiology, so then that way you can tap in and get the most out of the experiences. And it's not really something that we talk about a whole lot, but it's one of those things that, was an intention of why we created the product. We created the product to help reduce medical related incidents. We created the product for you to feel great. So then that way, you're potentiating your greatest potential inside of different experiences that you're having inside and outside of music festivals. And so then that way you can start making those changes, so you can gain those higher levels of awareness and you're able to actually see the mechanisms for why it is the way that you are. So then that way you can start making those changes and empower yourself and step into the best version of yourself, because so few people are doing that on this planet right now. And if everybody just stepped up and did their part and healed and became what it is that I know that you can become, then we would solve all the world's problems in a snap of a finger. It would be one of those things that we'd be amazed at what we could create together and who we could become together. And it just takes work, it takes dedication, and it takes, the right modalities to get you there. But we really pride ourselves in doing everything right here at Raveraide, so then that way we can help you get to that state. Because if we can help you get to that state, then you're going to become what it is I know you can become, and the world's going to be a better place, and the work's already done at that point. So we're really excited to have you along in the journey. We're excited to have you as part of our family, and I just hope that you gain some valuable insight on this episode about, my experience with psychedelics, my experience with, properly using them, using intentionality, getting the most out of the experience, looking at the truth for what it is, and actually processing that and integrating that into your life. And like I talk about in a lot of the episodes at the end, is it's all about integration. It's all about taking the experience that you have that reflects back to you and integrating that and making those subtle shifts and changes in your life, so that way you can start getting more of the result that you want. Because everything that's happening in your life is a result of your internal belief system and how you view the world. It's just reflecting itself back to you. So the quicker that you can heal, and the quality in which you heal is going to dictate the outcomes of not only your life, but future family's life, your spouse's life, your friends' lives. So that's why it's really not going to be that hard to help heal the world, because of the fact that once one person heals, they can heal infinite numbers of other people, and then they'll heal infinite numbers of other people. And that's, it's a similar way in which Raveraide's growing as a company. It's like we get the product to one of you guys, and then you share it with your entire Rave fam, and then as a result of that, they love the product, and guess what, we have a bigger family because of that. And we're super grateful for each and every one of you guys who message us and say, hey, I shared the product with my Rave fam, they love it, or hey, this saved my friend at this festival, or hey, we really appreciate you guys, the community's been needing this for a longer time now, and we're glad that you guys are here. And that's just the whole purpose of what we're doing. We want to unify the EDM community at a greater level than it's ever been unified at before, but it requires amazing people like you on a daily basis to, step up and heal and become what it is that I know that you're becoming, and let us help you in any way that you need that assistance and support, because you're not alone on this journey. You're not, separate. The only thing that makes us separate is an illusion of separateness, because we are everything. We are everyone. And I'm you and you are me. And that's the whole purpose of what we want to teach here at Raveraide. So be sure to check us out at www.drinkraveraide.com. We are running pretty low on the Liddy Lemonade. We'll get an inventory update for you guys sometime this week, so that way you guys know. The berry, we're not too far behind on that, but we definitely had more of the berry than we did with the lemon in our last production. So we're planning on making some tweaks and iterations just to continue to make the product better, because you guys deserve the best. So hope you guys have an amazing day. We'll talk soon. Peace.